Hello, my name is Nikolai Yusupov. I'm a critical care paramedic and a registered nurse in New York City. And in this video, I'd like to show you how to connect the LTV 1200 to a low pressure O2 source. And I'll give you a scenario that you may be familiar with. You're turning out of base, you're doing ALS, and by mistake, you or your partner grabs the wrong O2 bag, and it so happens that you have this regulator on the O2. Well, when you're supposed to have this one that has the 50 psi input for your LTV 1200 high pressure hose. So do not worry, we could still do the transport if you have this one and you didn't take this one. And I'll show you how to do that. This is what you're going to need. You're going to need your O2. You're going to open up a nebulizer packet and you're going to grab this connection. You could also open up a non-rebreather mask and take out the connection there. This is exactly like it, right? You will have to have some type of plier. So a good idea is always to carry some type of a Leatherman multi-tool with you. The reason being is these hoses are usually connected to the ventilator very tight, and you may not be able to unscrew it with your hand. So carry some type of a multi-tool. It will help you in many ways. So what you're gonna do, and also you will come to the in your ambulance, on your regulator on the wall you have a Christmas tree and you're just going to unscrew it. So I'll show you. Usually it's housed in one of these things, right? So you're basically coming over here and just taking it off. So and I'm going to show you how you would connect it. You take your Leatherman and you're going to unwind here. Open this up. So this hose you're not going to use because you don't have this regulator. So this is no longer in your usage. Take the Christmas tree. Where the 50 psi hose, you're going to come and screw it in. Make sure it's tight and there's no air leaking, no O2 leaking. So the patient gets the appropriate flow here. Now, this hose is going to be connecting here. Make sure it's tight. Come to the LTV 1200. You're going to hold down the low pressure O2 source, right? Because you're no longer able to dial in, right? You don't have the luxury anymore. So you're going to hold this down until it's bright and lit up. So you see how O2 is done. You cannot set this. O2, low pressure source is on. Then you connect it here. So I know what you're going to say. This is great, but how do I know how many liters I set the patient on, right? And LTV 1200 has a great chart in its manual, which you could download. And I advise you to print it and keep it in your pocket, or you can have a PDF file of this with you. I'm going to explain to you how you're going to read it. So the first thing, we're going to determine the required O2 input. So the situation is as follows. You're in the hospital. Patient is getting 80% oxygen, 80% FiO2, or 0.8 FiO2. You look over the ventilator and you see his respiratory rate is 12, his tidal volume is 500. Respiratory rate times tidal volume gives you minute ventilation, and that's what VE is. So in this case, we have a patient who is being given 80% FiO2 or 0.8. His respiratory rate is 12 and his tidal volume is 500. So 12 times 500 gives us 6,000 ml, or in these units, it's 6 liters. So we convert it to 6 liters. And the way this chart works is you find your FiO2. Okay, the respiratory therapist told me it's 80%. Great. I looked at the ventilator and my minute ventilation is 6 liters. So I go from 80 up to 6 until I hit 6. Or if it was a different minute ventilation, you would go accordingly to this chart. So from bottom, top, I found my number 6. And from here, I should left across. So it's slightly less than 10, right? So we say 10. So your input O2 flow liters per minute is 10. So you'll come to this dial here and you simply move it to 10. Right? So now we're delivering the appropriate FiO2 the patient requires. And another situation is you're called to a nursing facility, skilled nursing facility, and the patient is on these old LTV 1200 ventilators like 950, and they have the same setup, but you have your 1200, and you have your hose, your partner took all the right stuff, you know, you don't want to be dealing with this, right? So you want to set this appropriately, but you don't know what their FiO2 is. So again, you're going to utilize this chart. You're going to come to that 950. You're going to say, okay, this patient is at 10 liters. You're going to flip out the chart. You're going to say 10. Then you're going to calculate your minute ventilation. Oh, 12 times 500, 6,000 liters, 6,000 mLs. Converted to liters, 6 liters. So we're going to go from 10 until we hit our prescribed minute ventilation. So we go, 6. And then we shoot straight down, 0.80. And then you dial in your appropriate FiO2 utilizing your wheeler. Now, one caveat in this thing is you have to set the minute ventilation appropriately. So if the patient hemodynamics or respiratory rate changes, you need to recalculate it and readjust your flow rate. So obviously, you're not just going to use this chart. You're going to use your end-tidal CO2 and you're going to use your SpO2 pulse oximetry to dial in your appropriate rates. This doesn't mean you just arbitrarily come and put everybody with 15, right? So use your chart, calculate the appropriate flow settings, right? And then utilize your end-tidal CO2, SpO2 to see that everything is appropriate. And just because you forgot your 50 psi regulator does not mean the patient cannot get appropriate FiO2.